Hey, welcome back to Deer Corner. Hope you're having a good 2021 deer season. I know I'm doing pretty good. I kind of like it, but that's not what I want to talk to you about. Today, I'm wanting to kind of discuss how I come up with my unusual wall build for this cabin. And yeah, they're unusual. And let's just start off with the hurdles I had to come across in doing. And the first hurdle is checking with your county and your county building codes. Now here, my first hurdle ended up being a septic system. They would not accept any outside building, outhouse, any structure built here. I had to put in a septic system regardless. So that was the first hurdle I went across, and the footprint for my cabin, I only wanted it large enough for my cabin. So I ended up spending a little more to clear off a extra area for my leach field for my septic. And then my second hurdle I came across, I'm building with the building codes here. Let me give you a little hint. They really don't like the word off-grid cabin. They don't really prefer homesteading. So if you're going to go ahead and do you a cabin for hunting, fishing, use the phrase recreational. You'll find out that things go a little bit better if you use the phrase recreational dwelling, not off-grid. Now this place is off-grid. It's ran by solar, which I'm going to show later on how I did it and how it's ran. But today I want to talk about my wall system and how I came across it and why. I decided how big I wanted it. That was the first thing. The second thing I had to come across was, well, stick framing is the conventional way of building today. But in stick framing, you have to frame your structure, put the outside walls in, your siding, your insulation, your wiring, your plumbing, and then your interior walls. And it's a lot of time in stick framing. Now you can stick frame by yourself, and that is one of the hurdles you have to come across. And that is basically 80% of the work on a structure like this you'll end up doing yourself, because it's hard to work around somebody else's time, let alone working around your schedule. But having help from a friend or a neighbor or your family, you got to work with their schedule too, and that ends up in a lot of time. So I had to cross that hurdle on how I wanted to build this. Now stick framing, you can go ahead and stick frame yourself. I've seen a lot of places being built on YouTube that start stick framing in the spring, and come winter time they're putting in their insulation. And I built a whole lot of homes myself, so I do know stick framing is a long time going, because I'm only going to be up here on weekends and a couple days during the week, depending on my work schedule and how I can get away and get up here. So stick framing is an option that I looked at. The second option I looked at was a log cabin kit. And the kit itself was very reasonable. But the option there on that was 11-week waiting period. That was the earliest I could get a kit put together. And then the cost I had to pay for shipping. And then the cost of getting an off-terrain forklift to unload the truck and to carry it up the driveway, because I would have had to unload down at the road and bring it up the driveway. So the cost of rental of a machine, and then unloading, and then the semi paying the semi driver to haul it up, and that added to that expense, but that was still an option. And I was at the house putting down hardwood flooring, tongue and groove hardwood red oak flooring, and I looked at that flooring, that tongue and groove flooring, and that's when I came up with this system here. And this system I came up with is basically lumber that was cut off the property that got planed, and it's basically nothing but 3 2x8s glued and screwed together. And I kind of thought about it and came up with it, and I built a jig and showed how I was putting them together. And the first night after work I was able to do 3, but as I progressed I was doing the 7 to 8 a night, and it actually comes out looking like a log. Now that's the other thing about a log home that I looked at. I looked at some that were being built, and I looked at some that were one that was 10 years old and one that was 17 years old. And the cracking and the warping and the logs and the maintenance kind of made me turn away from a log structure. But coming up with this structure, I ran my grain of my 2x6s in different directions, which took care of the twisting. I had it dried, which took care of the shrinkage. And structural wise, it's solid 6 inches of wood. So that's how I came up with this. Now, as you can see, there's basically 3 2x6s that are glued and screwed together. And I have a 2-inch lip. And down where they come together, where my walls and my pieces intersect, I have another lip that they slide and lock in. In between them, as you put them together, I used a piece of 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/8 inch foam, and they lock down in place. And then I come through and fasten them together right here and build my wall on up. But this tongue and groove system's solid wood. And that's how I came up. Now you can build this with 2x6s instead of 2x8s. 2x8s are hard to work with. 2x6s would be easier, except you're going to add more to your wall. Now on my exterior boards, what I did was I cut a 20-degree angle in them on the tops. And this acted as a water drip edge. As the water hits the siding and comes down and drips, it'll run down and drip, run down and drip. So my exterior has a drip edge on it. And when I treated the exterior, what I use for log homes is a log home sealer to treat the outside of this. So make sure if you're going to do it, you're going to use a sealer that has an anti-fungus on it, so that you don't have mold and mildew to grow up on it. One thing I did do is I took me some water, 3 gallons of water at a time, some hot chili peppers, and I boiled them together, which gave me a hot chili pepper water mix. And the reason I did that, this interior board, I sprayed with a hand pump sprayer with that solution. And what that does, it will permanently keep any termites, any insects, carpenter bees, etc. from penetrating this lumber. throughout the years. So that is one natural system that a lot of people don't know, is water boiled with red hot chili peppers and sprayed on wood. It is a good pest control. So since the build here, I have not had no scorpions, which are very bad up here, believe it or not. Little black scorpions. No ants, no termites, no bugs, no roaches, no spiders. So that is a trick that I learned years ago when I put in this structure. Now, one of the things I came across and had to come up with an idea is keeping these walls vertical level. So I built a channel out of 2x4s. That's what's behind here. And that channel I secured and cross-angled to the floor, and that will keep my walls vertically level as I'm building. And also it kills another hurdle I came into, is how to run my wiring. So that's something else I'm going to show. I am off grid on solar, and I will show that how I'm operating. Even the lighting right now to video this is done with my off-grid system. But my son and I, we put these walls together and up and secured in one day. And stick framing or putting a log structure up, it would have took longer than that. So like I said, in 7 weeks, I was up and in the dry with a metal roof. And that's not 7 weeks straight. That's 7 weeks on weekends and a day or two during the week that I can get off and get up here and work on it. And yeah, 80% of the structure here that I built is done by myself. So a simple structure, and it's secured, and it's very, very sturdy, believe me. And on a good positive note, on a build such as this, these panels here, they came out of that window. So if you stick frame a window in and you want to move the window, it's a lot of work to remove that framing and move after your structure's up. But once I had my walls up, they were all solid. So they gave me a good eye view of where I wanted to place my door and my windows. And like I said, this sections here came out of this window after I had the structure up and in the dry. I can actually sit back and look where I wanted my doors and my windows. And that was funny because I had one window I cut in that had to go. That's how we got in and out until I figured out where to place my door. So that is a good advantage of a structure built like this. I could move my windows where I wanted them after the build. Now, to the build where I am today, and sitting back and figuring it up, this build here is actually 73.2% and less cost than it would be a log structure or a stick frame structure. So I did run into a lot of savings on putting a structure up like this, even though I had the lumber cost, and but I figured in the time too, how much time I used to get to where I am today. I'm not finished with it yet, but I'm getting there. So my savings were a lot more than what I planned on. And I'm glad you're with me. go ahead and hit the arrow on the bottom right hand side of your screen and go ahead and subscribe. Help the channel out. And I'm going to bring my electrical, even like I said, my lighting and everything is on solar, and I will bring that up on how I done it. So I'm glad to see you, and come back again.